Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle, and in this week's three-part trifecta, we're going to look at what constitutes a reasonable definition of lawlessness, of a dictatorship, and of tyranny. Now, today in Part 1, we'll look at the abuses of the law by the executive branch. In Part 2, we'll cover the weaponization of the NSA, the IRS, and the DOJ. And in our members-only Part 3, we'll get to the root of the problem and perhaps a solution. Joining me now to examine the utter contempt for constitutional limits on the executive's authority are the constitutionally strong Scott Ott and the strong constitutioned Steve Green. Welcome, gentlemen. Pleasure to have you with us. Well, President Obama, as we all know, seems to be able, not just willing, but able these days, to arbitrarily just wave a hand and modify existing laws at his personal whim. Now, in order to get some of his more radical appointments past congressional oversight, he declared the Senate to be in recess when the Senate was not in recess. And we've all seen him simply dictate changes to key provisions and deadlines in Obamacare, which, as we know, is the law of the land, but without going through the constitutionally mandated steps of drafting, passing, and signing new legislation to modify the old. So, Steve, if a person has the ability to simply dictate law, what would you call such a person?
Well, I'd have to call them a real dictator.
How about that?
I don't know that we've quite elevated to that level yet, but you know, this is, if it's not a dictatorship, we still have elections and those things, but this is tyranny as it was understood by our founding fathers. This is tyranny where one man can make these kind of decisions. Look, there was a very little reported story just last week out of Wyoming. The EPA, not the Bureau of Indian Affairs, not the State Department, the EPA transferred 1 million acres of Wyoming to one of the Indian reservations. I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but just unilaterally did this. Was this a power the EPA was somehow given by our treaty with one of the Indian nations? What's going on here? We don't know. What we do know is Wyoming is suddenly 1 million acres smaller, and that's a violation of the rights of the people of Wyoming. But the thing we have to remember, what we've witnessed here, and this has been going on for 100 years, but especially in the last 50, is Congress, in order to avoid having to hold unpopular votes, transferring more and more of its powers and its obligations to the executive branch on purpose. So what the Republicans have to remember is if they don't like Obama pressing all these levers of power, they helped hand them to him.
Yeah, that's a really excellent point. Excellent point, Steve. Well, Scotty, you know, noted constitutional scholar Barack Obama recently said during a staff meeting, quote, "One of the things that I'll be emphasizing in this meeting is the fact that we are not just going to be waiting for legislation in order to make sure that we're providing the American people with the kind of help that they need. I've got a pen and I've got a phone." Well, Scott, the president has a pen. Why can't he just write law? What would you call the actions of an executive sworn to defend the Constitution when he simply ignores the representatives of the people and the rules of the Constitution by just bypassing the legislative and going on with executive orders?
Well, see, I don't know why people are so upset about this quote, because actually I was kind of excited about it, because he said he was going to provide the American people with what they need. He's got a pen and he's got a phone. In my world, that means he's going to take a pizza order and deliver it to me, because that's what I need, and those are the only two tools he needs to be able to take that order.
He's not qualified
about that. And Steve, as for that Indian reservation thing, I've got a 10-square-mile territory along the Potomac River that I'd like to unilaterally hand over to some Native American tribe and see what they could do with it. That would be useful. You know, Bill, I think
couldn't do any worse.
The problem... That's right. I think the problem with tyranny is that it doesn't come in, it doesn't kick the door down. You know, it's kind of like, you know, the devil. The devil is not some, you know, red body, pointy tail with ears and a little goatee who looks obvious when he arrives and tempts you and cackles maniacally. The devil is smooth, he's suave, he's well-dressed, he's alluring. And that's the problem with tyranny. It comes little by little. It comes in pleasant forms. And you don't even notice it until you're so far gone. And next thing you know, you're in the manacles of 4 and you're going, what happened?
It's kind of true for devil and for vampires, right? You have to invite them in, I think. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't use these terms flippantly or lightly. If Barack Obama thinks he can simply look at sinking poll numbers and basically force entire sectors of the economy into total disarray simply by dictating changes and amendments, or dictating that in his opinion the Senate is in recess when it's clearly not in recess, then any such person is by reasonable definition to me a dictator. And for a man who supposedly taught constitutional law to announce that he's going to create laws he likes, totally disregarding the will of the people through their elected representatives, then that man, by any reasonable definition, is a tyrant. Any questions? For PJTV, I'm Bill Whittle.